Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield, your trusted source for analysis. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. All of the political parties are making their rounds on the media, especially the mainstream media, now that they're getting close to coming back from their summer off. And they are, of course, being asked questions about the upcoming election, the temperature of the country, how Canadians are feeling about their actions and their behaviors, what Canadians are looking for. And Karina Gould, who has returned from her maternity leave early so that she can resume her position as House Leader of the Liberal Party and I guess oversee its complete collapse, was on with Vasa Kapelis on Power Play. And she asked her some pretty straightforward questions, but the answers that come out of Karina Gould were just so totally disconnected and not in any way reflective of the temperature or the mood of Canadians, in my opinion. Now, before I get into it, I would encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. I am up against a ton of censorship, and any help that you want to offer me, I appreciate, but the thumbs up really helps, and the sharing it with your social networks also helps. In typical far-left form, the answers that she's giving are the answers that all of the people in her party are giving, which aren't really answers at all. They just keep repeating themselves over and over.
I found out at the same time as other Canadians today, mostly on Twitter.
She found out that Jagmeet Singh was breaking their supply and confidence agreement on Twitter. I thought, according to the far left, Twitter was the place only where the extremists of the right met. What is the individual who starts screaming for censorship, finds out her information, not from the mainstream media, not from her friends in the, CBC, CTV. I mean, think of all the contacts that she probably has in the mainstream media, but she finds out on X, on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. Interesting sort of turn of events, wouldn't you say? It's almost as if the Liberals say one thing and do another, or they don't follow the same rules that they expect from their people.
So the people in the NDP whom I spoke with said that decision was made in advance of the press conference, that the video was even taped in advance, and that essentially it was your government's actions throughout the lockout and the events with CN that cemented the decision for them. And
those rail strikes had gone ahead, we would have seen massive layoffs in other industries and workers affected, and not to mention everyday Canadians who would have seen the economy ground to a halt.
But again, and I take your point on the breadth of the impact on the rest of the economy. The workers in those incidents the whole thing as it unfolded did have a very specific set of concerns that ultimately your government decided to force arbitration on. Can you see how they would interpret that as a move that was anti those workers in particular?
Well, I think what's important is there had been a lot of bargaining at the table.
I can't stand them saying that sentence over and over again. Bargaining is always done at the table. It's called a bargaining table. I mean, that's what it is. However, with the case of the Teamsters Union of the Rail, what that was blatant disregard of the workers and complete and utter favoritism of the employer so they could protect their political fortunes, right? Because the economy would have taken a serious hit, and you would have heard them talking about supply chain issues all over again, and you would have seen inflation go up on a different tone, though, not for the economic fiasco disaster that the Liberals have put in, but because of shortages. There would have been shortages everywhere. However, we knew that this problem was coming, and what they should have done was put it in front of the labor board 3 months before the permission of the companies to lock them out, because that's what happened. They didn't go to binding arbitration until after the companies had locked out the employees, forcing because you could have made binding arbitration anything you wanted to. And if you'd had given time for them to do any kind of a research, you would have heard the party on one side, you would have heard the party on the other side, and the labor board could have made something that would have made everybody a little bit happier. And they absolutely could have warned everybody ahead of time. But they didn't. What they did was a tactic where the companies this is where the companies locking them out was the important step, right? Because then the government could step in and force the workers to stay at work. It was a very poorly handled, and just like everything else in the liberal camp, It's nothing to what they claim it to be, and it caused a lot of labor relations problems. I mean, can you imagine what it's like to be a manager trying to get people to do something at the train station now? And can you imagine the resentment that the employees are feeling? I don't care what anybody says. They should have, when they were offered to take it to binding arbitration like 90 days or 120 days ago, and everybody shot it down. And then the new labor minister come in and he said, no, it's not even essential. Fiasco. Just like all the Liberal policies, nothing that they seem to be doing is working. But let's hear the next round of questions.
That the Conservatives, under the leadership of Pierre Poilievre, will cut and get rid of things like dental care and pharmacare and childcare, things that matter to Canadians.
When you say, and the Prime Minister has said this frequently, including today, that you're going to continue to deliver for Canadians, what exactly does that mean? Because I think the message that they're sending through public opinion polling is that they don't think you're delivering for them.
Well, there are really big new programs that didn't exist 9 years ago or 8 years ago. So we are going to continue to implement childcare. You know, I was the Minister of Families that spent a lot of time negotiating those agreements. It's not done yet. There's still more work to do. Dental care. Yes, it's being rolled out across the country, but it's not done yet. There's still more work to do. When it comes to the green transition, things that we hear from Canadians that they like, those actual policies and those programs are important and meaningful for them.
Think of childcare, for example. I'm not taking away from the impact it's had so far, but only 30% of kids across the province, a recent study showed, actually have access to those spaces. There is a severe shortage. When you talk about bettering the cost of living, for example, or issues around affordability, at the same time, GDP per capita under your government in 6 of the last 7 consecutive quarters has declined. That's the steepest decline outside of a recession. Again, why do you keep saying you're going to continue delivering on stuff that Canadians doesn't feel is actually changing their life for the better?
First of all, 6 straight declines is a recession. And up to the time when the Liberals the Liberals changed the definition of a recession, it would have been called that. 6 straight declines. So I don't care about your, I covered a video on this and I told you that the interest point coming down is just because the people up at the top are worried that the money is not being spent. I guess they didn't foresee that people would stop spending. They must have such a little opinion of Canadians that they just felt that they would continue to spend their money until the whole country was living in a tent city. This lady talking about daycare spaces, when the actions of this not-for-profit daycare has put so many businesses out of work, has shut down so many daycares. It's leaving people to switch jobs so that one parent can be home with the child all the time. One parent works days and one parent works nights, which I can assure you makes for spectacular long-term relationships and is such a, it always leads to estrangement inside of your own home. You pass each other, on the morning shift, and the child deals with their parents one at a time. So I don't know that it's a good way for people. And I will cover my opinion on the what I believe the solution to childcare is. But you heard it right from her mouth, right? I mean, why are they not doing a story on the 6 out of the 7 straight declines? Why is that not a story coming out of the mainstream media? Why is that always quiet? Why do all I hear from the mainstream media is how there's another quarter point taken down? I think what we're doing is getting a glimpse of how they really think versus the way that the message is being portrayed to Canadians. And the Liberal House leader's about to let another one slip when she mentions how it was called the COVID recession, and then she quickly changes it to a different sentence, but you'll hear it for yourself.
The Bank of Canada did issue another interest rate cut, and these are because of policies that we have put in place. I mean, we came out of the COVID recession, the COVID pandemic, into a very difficult world, and we needed to make sure that we were being fiscally responsible. Childcare, yes, there are more spaces to create, but that very statistic that you quoted actually demonstrates an increase in spaces since the National Childcare Program came into effect. And just today, the Prime Minister was in Newfoundland announcing the very first agreement for a national school food policy. So these are things that are important, that are working.
You promised, with great respect, Minister, you promised that national school program in 2021. You announced it in April. 5 months later, you're making the first announcement with one Liberal government, essentially, that remains provincially. You have not come to agreements with other provinces across the country. We don't know exactly how soon that will all be implemented. It's the same thing over and over, right? And I take your point, like, it's not nothing,
in fairness,
but you're just telling people more of the same is coming.
But in fairness, these things take time.
But
right?
You've had 9 years.
There's dental care. There are, hundreds of thousands of people who have now accessed dental care.
So I ask again, if Canadians are so happy with these programs, why are your numbers in the toilet? Because they're not happy with these programs. These programs are not very they don't help the mass majority of people. I mean, you want to feed your children, you want to feed people's children at school lunch 5 days a week, which will ultimately become what? Crickets? I mean, I'm not joking when I say that. What food are you planning on giving them when all of the food that you make in this country is being put taxed through the roof by the carbon tax? So are you going to be feeding them food from another country? Is that the idea? Is that the government, don't have to buy Canadian food to feed it to Canadian children in Canadian schools? Or is it that you're going to do like every government program? I mean, think of one program in your life that the government implements, and then it doesn't 2 years later become something smaller. Now, I understand that 8% of children are going to school hungry. Don't come at me like I don't know what it's like to be hungry. But I can assure you that this is not the solution. That these Ceausescu-style communist Marxist approaches to the youth of our world are not going to be satisfied by some, cricket paste and gruel on their plastic tray in the room, while the children that are doing better their parents have found a way to get them into a different school altogether so that they can eat solid food. All you're creating is another class division. And the thing that what she's not addressing is what Canadians are unhappy about, right? I mean, this school food program might help a small percentage of people, 8% by all counts, but let's call it 10. The dental care might help 10% of people, and they have to be in certain age groups. Daycare spaces, she's like, oh, well, it was worse. There was less of them before. No. There was less of the government subsidized ones, sure, but there was plenty of spaces. But your legislation that you forget to mention is that you're not allowed to have people participate if they're a for-profit. So now you want to take the children rate from day one and turn them. And you want to act like Canadians are too dense to see that, right? Because your political science degree or your lawyer's degree makes you so much smarter than the rest of us. All you were able to do is ram these through because you had a supply and confidence agreement. And you told Canadians if they didn't like it, they were some kind of an ist. You called them names and you told them that they weren't allowed to get on airplanes. And you can't be serious with this. Oh, everybody is happy with these little programs that you had to mention over and over and over again. Dental care, school food programs, and daycare. The daycare is a fiasco. The dental care is costing people more money. And, I can't forget about the free birth control. So all we're talking about here is programs that help a very specific amount of Canadians. All the while, the economy, the recession that you mentioned coming out of COVID, the inflationary price growth that has put most of the food that we have, most of the things that we have, up 25% since the lockdown. None of that has been affected. None of that has been addressed by your government. In fact, your government has only increased the problem by taking the tax dollars, and instead of fighting down these things, you're putting the tax dollars into programs that only help a very specific few. I don't know that the Liberal Party has the answers to the problems that they caused, but I know that Vassy didn't let her off the hook. I know that she came right at her, and I know that those answers shouldn't give any Canadians any satisfaction. And appreciate that this is a person that is high in the circle, right? She's the House leader of the Liberal Party. There's only a few Liberal MPs that are going to be higher up the ladder. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you all for listening. Give this video a thumbs up. I'll talk to you next time.